This is the Local Service Business Podcast, brought to you by Launch27, the online booking form and service management tool that powers thousands of local service businesses around the world. Every week, we bring you a new episode with a different Launch27 user to discuss wins, challenges, and to impart wisdom from our journey in business to our listeners. We're glad you're here to join us. Hello, this is Dara with the Launch27 podcast, and today we have Ilya. He is joining us, and he is going to please introduce himself and his company, and we're going to have a chat with him today about building a local service business.
Hey, Dara, thanks so much for having me on. Hi, guys. My name is Ilya, and I'm 29 years old, live in Seattle, and I built a local service business using Launch27, and that's why I'm on this podcast. So what's up, you guys? I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Very cool. Thank you. So give me your background. I know you've had some success with, well, a lot of success, I should say, with the local service method, but what were you doing before you started this?
So basically my story is I'm an immigrant from the Soviet Union. I came here when I was 2 years old with my parents. They brought me here. And I remember we came with 2 suitcases, and one of them was filled with books. My parents were really, really about knowledge and learning stuff. So we immigrated here. We were, not even naturalized. We were staying in like this Mormon family's house, and there was basically all these people that were helping us just to kind of get by. So I'm really, really grateful and thankful, and kind of sort of come from a frame of appreciation, because I remember how hard it was to kind of, for my parents to get into this country. I remember my dad was working like 2 full-time jobs and going to school. So I don't know where he got time to sleep, but he was working really hard to support me and my mom and, my brother. So, came to this country and sort of grew up regular American kid, foreign kid. It was kind of tough to connect with people at first, because I just didn't really I never really kind of felt like I belonged anywhere in particular. But that was also great, because it kind of gave me a good perspective, because I was able to kind of mix and mingle with everybody and kind of see what different people were like. So I went to some of the, I went to public schools where there were buckets in the halls because there was water like dripping down from the ceiling. Oh, wow. And I also went to, one of the nicest private schools in the Seattle on a full scholarship. Oh, no. So I got to experience both sides of it. At one point I was, notifications going off everywhere now. No problem. I went from, doing all of this sort of like stuff where I was slacking off and just sort of partying a lot. And then I also kind of lived a life where I was really, really academically focused and really sort of challenged myself there. But ultimately, I decided academia wasn't where I wanted to spend my time. Mm-hmm. So I actually ended up just sort of getting an associate's degree, and then dropping out of school, because I decided that I'd rather pursue business and sales and things like that.
And how early on did you know that? And I always ask entrepreneurs this, because I've literally always have had my own business, and I can't imagine doing anything else. So at what age were you like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to do this entrepreneur thing?
Yeah. So I remember that my dad worked so hard, and I saw how hard my parents were working. And then I remember reading a couple of books. One of them was The 4-Hour Workweek. One of them was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. There were a few other ones, but essentially I started to see this other world where you could actually disconnect the amount of, time that you're investing into something with your income. So you can actually have your income be based on something other than the time you're putting in, AKA your skills, or your, the effort that you put in towards something, and how good you are at something. And that's really what drove me to sales and to business from right around high school.
So you have a sales background then, I guess. So you went directly into sales after you got your associates?
Yeah. So I spent 2 years door knocking, which is basically for a company called Evans Glass, which is now, it was like sued by the Attorney General for like dishonest business practices. So that gives you an idea of how rough it was. I mean, it was really cutthroat. I was working 8 hours a day. It was rain and shine. So I remember, there were some days where I would get out of the van at 12 p.m. and my feet would plop into a puddle. And I was like, well, 8 hours of walking with, soggy feet. I should really invest in some better shoes. So it was like, for 2 years, I just hammered it out, day in and day out, 8 hours a day of knocking. And I was signing people up for window estimates and all this crazy stuff, to get their windows redone. And, a lot of my friends worked there too. But what I learned from that job was, really kind of how to hammer it out. And also that, I can actually do this. Like I didn't think that I could do it, but I just tried really hard. And I said, well, I'll just outwork everyone then, and I ended up being successful with that. Started doing sales on the phone, worked at a couple different companies, Active Rain and eProperty sites, basically selling real estate agents on subscriptions, basically getting credit cards over the phone, doing cold calls. So I did that for a couple of years, and I ended up actually becoming a VP of sales at a small startup called Serps.com with Scott Krager, who's the most awesome boss of all time, if you're listening to this. From there, I actually started working at Zillow, which is like the famous real estate company. And that was a really, really challenging job. Some really, really good salespeople there. From there, it really kind of burned me out. I don't know if you guys, if anyone's listening, if you've ever felt just completely burned out with your business, like you're on this train that you've jumped on and now there's no getting off. Like you started something and now it's going. Yeah. And every day you wake up, and some days are harder than others. Some days you're super motivated. You're like, man, you're going to take on the world. Other days, you don't even want to open that inbox. I know you guys, feel me on this. So basically, are you having one of those days today? Oh my God. Yep. So we're all familiar with that, right? So the big thing with that I realized was that I needed to sort of change myself. So the last couple of years, last 3 years, I've been building this business. I mean, it's really changed me so much that I'm really grateful for the chance to kind of go through these hard times and some of the tougher times mentally to handle it. It's just a lot of psychological stress on you. Yeah. It really does kind of put you through the fire. And the cleansing fire, where it sort of strips away, a lot of the BS, and it really kind of centers you on what it is you actually want and what it is you're happy about and appreciative about. And I never would have that sense of appreciation if I didn't go through those hard times. So, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the journey there.
I agree with that for sure. So you, after you did sales, what made you just decide to start a cleaning company? Where was that? How did you find, was it Launch27 did you find, or did you have this idea to do it?
So I read Rohan's post on Reddit, like one of the original ones, and I was like, man, this is badass. I think he said he was doing like 4,000 a month or something. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is badass what this guy's doing. And I was really surprised with how open he was with his, he had like a kind of an abundance mentality. He really just kind of shared everything. And that opened my eyes to like, wow, because I always thought that in order to be successful in business, you had to, step on other people's heads and, because you were making more, other people had to make less. And there was this whole mentality coming from, a communist country, that my parents sort of ingrained in me, which, to be fair, that's kind of where they grew up and that's the mentality there. So it's no fault of their own. They did the best they could and I have awesome parents. But like, that's kind of what they taught me. Right. So, that was really hard to kind of unwire.
Yeah, I completely understand that. So then once you started the cleaning business and after you're reading everything, did you start immediately with Launch27 or did you start just kind of cobbling things together? How did that go?
Yeah, I started a couple different cleaning businesses that ultimately didn't work out. One of them was college house cleaning. I thought that, college students wanted to clean houses, but I guess they don't. Or maybe I just didn't have the business right, but that one didn't work out. Then I heard about Launch27, I think from Reddit as well. And yeah, I instantly signed up and the framework of the path that I had seen kind of Rohan map out for everybody, where it's like, hey guys, just do this. Like, come on, this, like, I'm giving you the golden egg here. Like, just do this stuff and it'll work. Right. So he was he was able to share so much that I literally had a map for what I needed to do. And Launch27 was the missing piece because, I know how to do marketing. At that time, I knew how to do marketing. I knew how to do, most of the parts of the business, except for that whole administrative part where, okay, I can get someone to book with me, but then what happens with that lead? You know, like I'm comfortable generating leads, but what I need a system to put that lead into. So in real estate, we call them CRMs, and in a lot of other, you know, sales kind of roles, we would call them CRMs. And this is kind of my CRM for the cleaning business. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what's been your biggest struggle then? Has your biggest struggle been the administrative part, or is it the cleaning part? What's your biggest struggle, would you say?
My biggest struggle has definitely, like, you know, what Tony Robbins says, like 80% of the, you know, growth of a business, or the hindrance of a growth of a business, is going to be the psychology of the owner. And I mean, that's so true with me, because, you know, it's one thing it's really easy to say, oh, well, you know, if I was going to do it, I would do it like that. Like a lot of people, they try to, when they see a business doing something wrong, they're like, well, why don't they just do it like this? They refer to this kind of vacuous they as these like random people in the sky that could just make everything work. And it's like, no, dude, we're all humans. We all have the same resources. We all have the same tools at our disposal. Maybe some of us have, let's say, like more influence in terms of social media followings, and how long will those even last, right? So, I mean, the point is that, like, we all kind of have the same tools and resources in the end. The internet has kind of leveled the playing field. So because of that, it's not even a lack of resources anymore. Like Rohan said in the Overthink Academy post, he said, you know, I'm a human being alive in 2018, or he said 2017 at the time. I have access to the internet, clean drinking water, and a world of opportunity before me. That quote is so true, because it encapsulates the fact that nobody, if you're listening right now and you're thinking about starting a business, the resources are already there. It's just up to you to capitalize on them, right? And if you don't know how to find the resources, then become resourceful enough to figure that out. So it's just kind of like there's no excuse, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been the biggest hurdle for me is it's not a lack of resources or information. It's literally just me getting myself to sit down and battle the, you know, as Stephen Pressfield calls the resistance, which I've made a couple of YouTube videos about, actually. I have a YouTube channel called Ilya Business Advice, if anyone wants to check it out. Just, you know, shameless plug in there real quick.
I'll check it out.
But, you know,
that's definitely my biggest struggle as well. It's just like getting everything in place, and then just, you know, you feel like you just got to execute, you know, and it's you who stops you, you know. So I like the idea of, you know, just kind of getting yourself out of the way, and that's how you grow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's been my biggest struggle, and a couple of tools and resources really quick as takeaways for people that they can use right now. That I'd like to share. One of them is that, you know, accountability. I was talking to my friend, and he, you know, he's getting a master's degree, and he's like, man, I see you building this business. The only reason I really come into school and do this, like, I know I have these like big goals, but on a granular day-to-day basis, the only reason I even come in is because there's someone there telling me to do, like, there's a teacher there that's keeping me accountable. He's like, you know, the problem with building a business that people run into is that if you don't work on it, like if you don't work on that productive stuff, and you just spend your whole day in reaction, just sort of like reacting to this, reacting to that, putting out fires, not actually working on the non-urgent important stuff, what ends up happening is that, I mean, it's so much easier to rationalize that. Like let me give you an example. When I wake up in the morning, if I am like, have like let's say like a life coach or someone that's keeping me accountable, where I have to send them a message at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever I'm done working, it says, hey, here's what I did, here's what I learned, here's what I would have done differently today. And if I have to do that every day, when I wake up, I mean, I really don't want to feel like going to work. I mean, I constantly have to battle with that version of me that just wants to watch YouTube videos and just kind of hang out. So what I found is really effective at battling that is stop trying to use willpower. I know you're trying to meditate yourself into having amazing willpower to just crush all your goals on every level. But the point is that is a finite resource, and it's not sustainable. You know, you will sort of like, you will have those days where you don't have that willpower. Like you were talking today, you're like, it's one of those days, right? And there's a lot of things that can affect that. Let's say you stayed up late at night because you had to finish a work project. Now you're underslept, and now suddenly your willpower is depleted. What I'm saying is don't try to rely on willpower. If you're not doing stuff and you're like, oh, I just need more willpower, it's not your fault. It's not, I wouldn't do it either without these external pressures. So be resourceful enough and smart enough to create an external pressure on yourself, something that's keeping you accountable. That's why school works so well, because there's a teacher there keeping you accountable. So social pressure is really good. I would use social pressure, a life coach that you have to check in with, maybe even just tell your friend, look, I'm going to check in with you every day. I'm going to tell you what I did today and how long I worked on my project, or, worked on, moving my project forward. And if I skip one day, that's cool. But if I skip 2 days, that's, below my standards. That's unacceptable. And I'd like you to, really follow up with me and tell me what's up, man.
Yeah.
And offer some reward where if you mess up for 2 days in a row, now you have to give them a large sum of money, or you have to, set up a reward that's good for them and bad for you, so they'll actually enforce it. Like, I have to clean your toilets for a week or whatever, right? Like, so be resourceful enough to come up with a creative way to put external pressure on yourself, so that, maybe I don't want to work on my business today, but I'm going to. Why? Because I don't want to have to tell my life coach that I was lazy.
Yep.
And that's silly, because I don't even know the person. I mean, they're halfway across the country, but the fact that someone is keeping me accountable is important. And that's the only reason a lot of days I do the work. Other days I'm inspired, but again, you can't count on that.
Yeah, I love that. I agree with that wholeheartedly, because I go through periods where I'm super, super inspired. I create great work. I do great things. And then there's other times where it's just a struggle to get things done. And if you don't just push through that, like, you can get stuck in that slump. So I love that idea of just having someone keep you accountable. I think that's great. So do you have a partner? Do you work alone, or how do you do that?
I work alone.
Okay. And how is that for you, being a solo owner?
It's cool. I also have another, like, a real estate business that I do with a partner, and I think there's pros and cons to both. I think it's too large of a topic to really go in depth because there's so many counterexamples and so many different kind of examples of different ways it can be accomplished. I think you should just try both and see which one works for you in the end. Like, the question, should you have a co-founder or not? Just try both. Some people like to work alone. They do better like that. Some people work better in teams.
I agree with that. So what's the one thing you feel you do really well with your local service business?
That's a great question. I would say probably automation. I love Zapier, or I don't know if that's how you say it, or it's Zapier, but it's ZAPIER.com. And it's I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. It's an automation tool. I love the fact that, I love tinkering around with it and kind of tweaking my processes. But yeah, I think I've done well in terms of automating a lot of stuff that I haven't really seen other people automate.
Can you give me an example? What's one of your favorite automations that you've done?
Yeah. So for example, we use Groove Hiring for our hiring. So when we post, let's say a Craigslist ad for hiring, then we get applicants and we send them to, we have a link in there that goes to Groove Hiring. So the cool thing about Groove Hiring, you can hook it up with Zapier. So what you do is you set it so that when someone completes a application in Groove Hiring, it sends a trigger to Zapier. And then what Zapier does is it actually sends data over to Zapier. It sends the person's, name and their email and their phone number. And then what Zapier does is it uses another app that I have called Front, although I guess you could use Gmail or any sort of kind of communications app. And it sends an email out to this person and also a text message using a Twilio number that I set up all through Zapier, where it basically says, hey, thanks for booking your, or thanks for completing your hiring application. Here's a link to schedule your phone interview. And it has a link, it has a youcanbook.me link, which is a service I saw Rohan using. The URL is youcanbook.me. And basically what happens is when I post a Craigslist ad, suddenly, as opposed to having a bunch of applicants to come in that I have to call individually and text and email like I used to do, now they all automatically get an email and a text message that says, hey, book your phone call. And then when they go to youcanbook.me, it's connected to my calendar, so it shows when I'm free and when I'm not. So for example, right now I'm speaking with you, Dara, and I don't have anything else on my calendar conflicting with that. Although, when we're done on the phone, I may have, something blocked off where I'm like, oh, cool. Looks like, this person booked a hiring interview with me, so I should call them, talk to them. So I have an alarm go off at the time of the appointment on my phone, and then in the calendar, in the little calendar thing, when I go on my Apple and I go on calendar, it has the person's name and it has all their info, and so I just on my phone I just click to call the person. I speak with them, and then after the phone call ends, there's actually 2 links in the calendar thing. One is accepted and one is reschedule. So if the person doesn't answer, I click the reschedule link, and that automatically sends a submission to a Google Forms, which then goes to Zapier, which then basically sends them a text and email that says, hey, we missed you, please reschedule. So it takes me literally a couple seconds out of each day to just shift into oh, let me make this hiring call and then let me be done with it and just press a button and then it sorts itself out. And it's really, really kind of helped with the back and forth that I see happen a lot with, kind of people's hiring processes.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you put some responsibility into your candidates' hands as well, because they have to schedule with you. And, that kind of gives one more step of verifying that they're serious about the job. So I can see how that would, be helpful as well, because some people, you can spend a whole day trying to track down people who weren't really serious about the job. But if they schedule a time to meet, that's just one more kind of touch point that says, okay, yes, they're going to be responsible and they're going to answer my phone call and potentially be a good candidate. So I love that. That's really cool. So if you don't mind discussing, what is your current revenue right now?
Yeah, so we did about 360,000 last year. Mm-hmm. So this year I'd like to hopefully double that. That's the goal. I think we have about 360 recurring customers, something to that effect.
Wow. And how many do you have on your team?
How many teams do we have?
Yes, how many teams?
Right now we have, I believe, 7 active teams. And I believe that one of them has 4 people and the rest have 2, 2 teams have 1. So I'm not sure how many, I'm not really that good at math. So however many people that is.
And do you have employees or ICs?
I use ICs currently.
Okay, cool. So what are your goals? I guess you said your goals for this year, revenue-wise, is to double that. What about operations-wise? What are you looking to improve on?
That's a great question. So I recently discovered business process management, which is basically how to automate every single part of your business, or as my friend likes to say, how to set it up so you don't have to do anything. That's basically the way he describes it. Right now I'm using a really cool app called Process.Street, which is basically an app that helps you to systematize your company by building repeatable processes, similarly to how you would do in a Word document. But there's a couple key advantages, such as, whenever we have someone that we like, let's say I have that hiring phone call with somebody and I want to accept them, like, okay, cool, let's continue with the hiring process. I just click that link in the calendar. One of the operations that happens when that happens, when I click that link, is that it sends them it creates a new Process Street checklist for them. So like in my library, I can see for every new applicant that's passed the phase of the hiring phone call, they are now in this they have this checklist. And then what I do is I have my VA, my virtual assistant, just kind of look at each checklist as it comes into her inbox and follow the process so for example, I might have it be like, send them the onboarding packet, send them the independent contract agreement, make sure that it's signed, wait 2 days. It's this whole way to sort of automate that so that you can see where everyone is in each part of the process.
Very cool. Very cool. I like that.
That's it.
I was going to say, I need to
Sorry, go ahead.
The automating process, because that's something that I struggle with for sure.
Word. Well, one last tip on that, really, really quickly, is because I know I value guys' time. There's kind of a hack to this. So typically, if you're trying to automate things, what you would do is you would take a, do the thing that you're doing and then sort of document it and then send that process over to a VA and then have them do it. A really cool thing you can do is, so I actually have 2 tiers of virtual assistants. I have the ones that are at $4 an hour, and then I have one that's at $8 an hour. And the one that's $8 an hour is a rock star. Like, she has a really impeccable resume. And I mean, for $8 an hour, I'm like, holy crap, this person is so qualified. So what I have her do is I actually have her create the processes. So what I do, like, let's say there's something in my business that bears automating. I will just, I have a MacBook, so I open QuickTime screen recording, and I just start recording what I'm doing on the screen as I'm doing it, and narrating also, because it's capturing my voice. And it creates a nice little video. Then I send it to my $8 an hour VA, and I say, please transcribe this. And a day later, I get back a Word document that's nicely formatted, 2 to 10 pages long, that just has literally every single thing I said in that video over how to do that action, that process. And it's all formatted and looks nice. Then what I do is I send that to my $4 an hour VAs, and I have them actually do the routine kind of process. Because, now that it's sort of documented in Process Street, there's a video there of how to do it, and there's detailed instructions. If they have any questions, or if there's exceptions that they come up with, I just instruct them to reach out to the $8 an hour VA, and then she just takes those exceptions kind of and writes them into the process, so we don't have to deal with that particular situation again. I found this to be massively helpful in terms of me just kind of being like, wow, I'm doing this thing in my business all the time. Why don't I just automate it? Yeah. Pop in a screen recording, just start recording it, send it to the $8 an hour VA, and she handles the rest.
Very cool. I'm gonna check out Process Street and try it out, because I do need, that is one of my goals for this year, is just to get better, especially as we grow up, to not have to repeat myself all the time. So I love that. So just to finish it off, because I know we're at 30 minutes, I have my 3 questions that I ask everybody, and those are, can I have one tip for someone who's just starting out in their business?
Quit overthinking everything, and just ship it. Just create as much as you can. Just build things. Sometimes there's no answer, no matter how much you overthink it. Sometimes the only answer is just to do it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, what about somebody who is trying to scale? And I know the answer to this one after we've spoken for this half an hour, but what's
make a list of, number 1, the things that you do most often in your business. Number 2, the things that you dislike doing the most. And number 3, the things that you like doing the most, because that's a secret one. The first 2 are obvious, but the third one, the things that you like doing may actually need to get automated, because you're holding on to doing it because you think you're really good at it. Like, I always thought I was really good at customer support. I'm like, man, I've done sales for years on the phone. I'll crush this customer support thing, right? And then, like, what happens is that I end up not wanting to delegate that, because I'm like, but I'm so good at it. No one can do it as good as me. And then I end up holding myself back. So make sure you kind of look at that list of 3 things, make a list, and then start the process I told you earlier about how to automate it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because that's actually a golden tip, because I do the same thing, where the things I'm good at, I think nobody else can do them better than me. And they're things that just I need to let go of, so that I can do other things that need to get done. So I love that. I love that tip. And then the last one is one tip for someone who is about to give up.
Well, I've been there many times, and I mean, I gave up lots of times, and then I just kept going. Like, right, there were days where I was like, okay, like, it's okay to give up on a particular idea, but don't give up on the dream that got you started. And if you feel like you're going to give up, come back to why you started. Like, why did you even start this in the first place? What was that spark? What was that fire in your belly? What was that? You couldn't sleep at night because you read a Reddit post all night, and you're like, oh my God, this is possible. This is opening up my brain to this new dimension. I can't believe this was possible before. Like, go back to that and become curious again, and become like a kid again, where you're like, man, all this possibility, like, I can just sit here and type things on my computer and then magic will happen. Like, that's the space you want to be in if you're at that point of giving up. Because if you've had your face ground into the dirt by the boot of your business or life in general, then what you need to do is get back to why. Get back to the reason why you started this in the first place. Become curious again and ask yourself, what's good about this? I know it's a terrible question to ask when you're feeling beaten down, but ask yourself, what's good about this? Am I getting more emotionally resilient? Am I becoming a stronger of a person? Am I becoming more apt to actually pursue my goals? Am I hardening myself to the realities of the world and becoming someone that other people can depend on and other people look up to? And once you kind of reach that state, that's the kind of motivation that'll keep you going despite, as Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, just keep going. So I think that's, yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. This was really, really great. I know a lot of the Launch27 users out there are going to love it, especially the pieces on automation, because I know that that's something you're great at. All of us struggle. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Word. Thank you guys. Keep hustling. Thank you, Launch27. You guys rock. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon, Ilya.